Well, our next guest here is also a specimen of health, but that was not always the case, and she's going to share her story with you, and it's pretty powerful. She was also playing like a baller in the basketball game that we had last night against the Harlem Legends, and all of our speakers today, or at least most of them, participated, and this girl was all over the court, so I'm pretty impressed to hear her story, because if that's what health looks like, then I want what she has. So I want you guys to give a huge round of applause to our next speaker, best-selling author, Dr. Veronique Desaulniers. Yay! Dr. V, everybody!
All right, so let's start off by a show of hand again. How many people have known somebody with breast cancer? And keep your hands up. How many people have known somebody with breast cancer and it didn't turn out too well? Not too well. So my focus, obviously, is breast cancer. And my mission and my passion is to empower women around the globe to prevent and to heal breast cancer naturally. As Chris was mentioning, when you get on that conveyor belt when you're diagnosed with cancer, there's a lot of fear. And we've coached women in over 21 countries so far, and we've helped them to take that fear out of that journey and to understand that you can heal your body once you understand what cancer is all about. So this is just the disclaimer, basically telling you that if you follow what I say, you're going to get well. So my story starts way back. I'm a bioenergetic chiropractor by profession, and my passion, when I was 16 years old, I knew right away that I wanted to bring wellness to the world. I became a chiropractor, and I was rocking and rolling in practice in 1980. And then in 1983, my father's diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. So that was one of those defining moments where I had seen patients in my practice being able to reverse cancer and other illnesses with some of the work that I was doing. But when my father was diagnosed and the doctors told him, there's no hope, you're going to die in 6 weeks, and go home and enjoy the rest of your days. That was a gut-wrenching moment, because I knew that there was something that could have been done for my father, but they gave him no hope and they weren't offering him anything. So at the time, 1983, no internet, right? So I went to the library, started calling cancer clinics back then, which were few and far between. And I realized that there was something that could be done for my father. But unfortunately for him, it was too late. And that lit a fire in my soul, and I said, people need to know that you can reverse and heal cancer if you follow certain principles. So I took that information, brought it along to my practice, and I literally started attracting people from all over the world. People were coming to find out what they could do to get well. So we were seeing people coming in a wheelchair with MS, in 6 months walking away. People with rheumatoid arthritis and lupus, all kinds of autoimmune diseases, children on all kinds of medication, cancer, all these amazing things happening. Now, it wasn't me, it wasn't my team that was actually doing all these things, but the people were taking responsibility for their health, and they were changing their lifestyle, and they were applying the laws of nature. Well, fast forward 10 years, my mother's diagnosed with breast cancer. So she decided she wanted to have a lumpectomy. She did radiation, which they radiated her so badly that her breast was red hot and hard as a brick till the day she died. But she didn't want to do chemo, so she came to Georgia to visit her daughter to do the anti-cancer protocol, and she never had an issue with cancer again. But then fast forward a few more years, I'm getting ready for work. Typical day, I'm in the shower and I'm doing a breast self-exam, and bam, I feel that lump in my left breast. And I kept feeling, I never felt that before. And I knew in my gut that something wasn't right, that there was something that was off. So I then discovered that I had breast cancer. So what you're looking at here is a thermogram, and we'll talk a little bit about that in just a few minutes, but thermography basically reads the infrared heat that's coming off your body. So what you're seeing as very red here is inflammation, and where that arrow is pointing is where the tumor was. And you also see that hot spot, that's a lymphatic node. So here I am, Dr. V, helping all these people, super mom, super doc, had it all together, or so I thought. And here I am facing this issue with breast cancer. So how could somebody like me, who thought was so healthy and was taking care of all these other people, how could I develop breast cancer? I ate organic before organic was in style. My children still give me a hard time about feeding them wheatgrass when they were little. Did wheatgrass shots before that was in style. Exercise, was under chiropractic care, took supplements, did everything right. Or so I thought. So here I am diagnosed with this issue. And I had to go down that rabbit hole of information and soul searching and research and trying to figure out what pieces of the puzzle did I miss that allowed me to develop breast cancer. So I had to do some pretty serious soul searching at that point. And I found myself feeling very frustrated and fearful at times, because what happens when somebody gets diagnosed with cancer? What's that picture that we all get? Slow, torturous death, right? Not a pretty picture. But I knew that I was not going to go into traditional medicine, and I knew that I was going to rely on evidence-based natural medicine because of all the miracles that I had seen and the studies and the science behind it. So that led me to create what I call the 7 essential system. Because I was frustrated, I was confused, I was picking pieces of the puzzle here and there. And I realized if I was feeling that way after being in practice for 25 years, how much more so would the average person who didn't have access to all that material and all those years of experience? So I created a system, a step-by-step system that if you follow, you never have to fear cancer or any disease again, for that matter. So we're going to talk about each of these essentials, and we could spend a whole day on each of them, but I'm going to bring out some highlights. So most of you here probably understand that cancer is just the symptom. It's not the cause. If you have cancer developing in your body, or any disease for that matter, whatever label they give it, it means that your body is out of balance. We use a fruit tree as an example. If you don't give that fruit tree sunlight and nourishment and water, what happens? It doesn't bear proper fruit. Well, if your body is full of toxicity and stress, just like Chris was talking about, all those things will not bear proper fruit. Bottom line is, cancer cannot grow in a healthy body. And sometimes when I play this on Facebook, or I post that on Facebook, I get some pretty nasty answers. Well, I was healthy and I developed breast cancer. Doesn't happen. If you have cancer, if you have any disease, there's something that's out of balance. According to the American Cancer Society, more than half of cancers can be prevented through your lifestyle changes and healthier habits. So what does that mean? That means taking responsibility for your health. Because statistically, look in the audience, if you count, 1, 2, 3, 1 out of 3 women and 1 out of 2 men are destined to develop some form of cancer in their lifetime. And those statistics are getting worse. The saddest part of this picture is that it is also the leading cause of death in children now. So something needs to change, and that comes with people like you, events like this, events like The Truth About Cancer, that educate and expose the truth about what health is really about. So let's understand a little bit about cancer. Before you think about, oh, am I going to get it? Cancer is not that spooky monster that one day you wake up and you've got it. Cancer develops over a period of time. It's taken 5 to 10 years for that to develop into your body. So if we look at the difference between a healthy cell and a cancer cell, healthy cells need oxygen, cancer cells use sugar. And more and more of you are understanding that. Healthy cells live in a very alkaline environment, whereas cancer cells live in a very acidic environment. They create that acidic environment. Healthy cells need a nerve supply, cancer cells don't. Healthy cells go through a cell cycle and they eventually die. Cancer cells never die. Isn't that interesting? A cancer cell never dies, it just continues to grow. Healthy cells communicate with the rest of the body and with each other. Cancer cells don't. And lastly, healthy cells talk to the immune system, they go back and forth. But look what the cancer does. It secretes an enzyme called nagalase that literally puts your immune system to sleep. So if you understand the dynamics between healthy and unhealthy, then you start getting a handle on, what can I do then to create an environment that's not friendly for these cancer cells? So this is when we get into each of the essentials. And I start with number 1, because as Chris mentioned, food from the planet was put here for our benefit. And I want you to start looking at food as a prescription for health. It's that important. We're used to doctors signing prescription and giving that to you, and you go home and you obey and you do what he says. Well, it's no different with food. A study done at the University of Montreal, if women ate 27 different types of fruits and vegetables per week, look at the decreased risk of breast cancer, 73%. Now, why is the pink movement not talking to people about things like this? Right? Unfortunately, they're teaming up with people that promote that, the standard American diet. That does not feed your body. Chris mentioned Jack LaLanne. How many people remember? I remember with my mom doing exercise in front of the black and white TV. He was a chiropractor, nutritionist. If man made it, don't eat it. Doesn't get any simpler than that. And you have a choice, because when we coach women and help them on their journey, whether it's healing or prevention, oftentimes we hear, but it's so hard to eat that way, or I don't want to stop eating this. But it's very simple. You have a choice, right? You get to feed your body, or you get to feed the cancer. It's not complicated. It's a choice. So what do I mean by you get to feed the cancer or your body? Well, the first and most important food that you must avoid is sugar. And why is that? Dr. Otto Warburg, he won a Nobel Prize for this back in the 1920s. Now, we don't hear about this from traditional medicine, but cancer cells use glycolysis and fermentation and sugar to breathe instead of oxygen. So doesn't it make sense that if cancer cells use sugar to breathe and to grow, that we would want to be very careful about the sugar, the amount of sugar we have in our diet? But what are some of the things that you see when you go to a chemotherapy suite or walk into a medical doctor's office? Candy, Cokes, doesn't matter what you eat, just put on the calories. That's a serious disservice. We know that cancer cells get fed first when it comes to sugar, and how do we know that? A PET scan. You get injected with radioactive glucose. They inject it in your body, let you sit in a room for 30 minutes. They run you through the tube. What lights up first? The cancer cells. And they use that every day, but they don't connect the dots. When you have too much sugar in your body, it increases insulin, and it increases the insulin growth factor, IGF-1. And what does that do? That creates more cellular growth. It also depresses your immune system, and it increases your risk for cancer. Now, this is something very, very important that I want you to understand. Cancer is a metabolic disease. Less than 5% of cancers are genetic. You know, we've been led down that rabbit hole where we've been told it's in your genes. You know, my mother had breast cancer, so I was destined to have breast cancer. That's not how it works. Cancer is a metabolic disease in that if you lower your glucose levels, you increase your healthy foods, healthy fats, you eat less food, and you do some intermittent fasting, we're seeing now in the last 10 to 20 years a lot of research where people are reversing cancers simply by doing things like this. As Chris mentioned, fasting is free and it's so beneficial for you. It reboots your immune system, kills off some of those cancer cells. In fact, women who fast before they do chemotherapy have much fewer side effects than those who don't. So when I say cancer is a metabolic disease, think of diabetes. Type 2 diabetes on the rise. Well, look at the diet. But if a person is diagnosed as a type 2 diabetic, what are some of the things they're going to stop doing? Right? They're going to stop eating sugar and watch their diet and exercise. And they can manage the diabetes. On the same note, if a person has cancer, if they follow a healthy regime and take responsibility for their health and do some of the things I'm going to talk about, then the cancer will be very minimal and be very manageable. People rarely die from cancer itself. They die from the side effects of the treatments. People can live with cancer for a long, long time, just like they can live with diabetes for a long, long time. So it's a mind shift, I know, because of the way we've been taught, but start thinking in terms of cancer in those terms. It doesn't have to be the scary, spooky monster that's going to get you in the end. Thousands and thousands of people every day heal from cancer all over the world. It's happening. Stay away from GMO foods, and that's very easy now. We have little labels that we can look at that says non-GMO verified. GMO foods are toxic. Your body does not know what it is. It doesn't recognize it. So try to avoid them. What you're looking at here are laboratory animals that have been fed GMO corn, and those are mammary or breast tumors. So avoid GMO foods as much as possible. Avoid commercial dairy products, full of toxins, full of hormones, loaded with antibiotics. Very dangerous when it comes to cancer. Stay away from tap water. Don't drink tap water. Don't even bathe in it. Make sure you have filters on it because there's hundreds of chemicals in there. Bottled water, sometimes that's the only thing we have available. It's a little bit better, but try to get filtered water, and there'll be a presentation today on a good type of water as well. Environmental working group, EW.org, great resource for reducing toxicity in your family. Hydrogenated and processed oils, if it comes in a package like that, don't eat it. It's going to clog up your cells so they can't get enough oxygen. Again, environmental working group, they have a list of vegetables and fruits, the dirty dozens versus the clean 15. These are the ones you definitely don't want to eat unless they're organic. The others you can get away with. But these, unless they're organic, don't eat them. You can peel cucumbers, but you can't peel a blueberry. And I get this question all the time, what's the best diet? What's the anti-cancer diet? Well, there's no quick answer for that because everybody's different. I've seen women who've done totally raw diets that didn't do very well until they started adding protein. I've seen women who ate way too much protein and we needed to add more raw. So it's very important that you work with somebody that can support you and guide you along the way. I touched on this a bit, how your DNA is not your destiny. But now we know with the science of epigenetics and nutrigenomics. Now what does that mean? Looking at your genes and how food affects your gene expression. One of the tools that we use in our coaching program is a DNA test, and we look at potential weaknesses and patterns that are there. And a lot of women, I'd say 99% of the women that we've worked with that have breast cancer always have specific patterns in how their liver detoxifies and how they handle their hormones and how there's a lot of inflammation or that tendency to have inflammation. But we can change that and support that through nutrition and through lifestyle changes. Because there are literal switches on your genes that can be turned off and on depending on your lifestyle, depending on your stress, depending on the foods you eat, depending on your sleep patterns. So you have a large measure of control on your health. That's the great news. Aren't you excited about that? Yes, you have a large measure of control over your health. You just have to learn to put the pieces of the puzzle together. So some of the foods that have been studied extensively, curcumin, for example, over 3,300 studies that show that it activates and can suppress certain genes. Broccoli sprouts. There's a nutrient in broccoli sprouts called sulforaphane, and it boosts your immune system, it kills off cancer cells, something as simple as that. They did studies and they found that when they fed women broccoli sprouts and broccoli juice, and they examined the breast tissue after a breast reduction, that broccoli potent sulforaphane was actually found in the breast tissue. So we know that it's affecting your health. We know that it really works. Look at adding lots of cruciferous and green leafy vegetables because of everything that it does. Turns on those protective genes, detoxifies the liver. Healthy oils, very, very important. Stay away from the trans fats, but use lots of healthy oils. Coconut oil, avocado oil, fish oils, flaxseed, grapeseed oil. All those things are very beneficial. Fish oils, you should, if you're wanting to eat clean meat or clean fish, just make sure that you're getting it wild caught. But if you don't like to do that, then a quarter cup of ground flaxseed is equivalent to, or actually has 3 times the amount of omega-3s compared to 4 ounces of salmon. If you're going to eat fruit, in my opinion, it's important to keep it to a minimal time, a minimal restriction, unless you're in the summertime and there's plenty of organic produce that's available for you. But low glycemic foods, because they help to minimize that insulin and sugar spike. And if you think that eating well is boring, you can go to my website, breastcancerconqueror.com. I've got over 300 recipes there, some raw, some not, all kinds of different things that you can enjoy, the delectable dishes. So that's essential number 1. Now we're going to look at essential number 2 about reducing your toxic exposure. And we'll look at it from a macro level to a micro level, home into all the way down into your body. All the way back to 1980, we saw that the planet was in trouble. Time magazine brought this out, all the different toxic metals that we were seeing. But if you look inside your home and you just look under the cupboard or look in the closet. The average person has over 1,000 toxic chemicals in their home. And it starts with simple things. The little things that you spray in the air or the things that you plug in. You don't need those. They're toxic fumes. The stuff you spray on your carpet or the things you put in your washer and dryer. Start looking at reducing your toxic exposure on little things. What about the things you put on your skin? Anything you put on your skin is like putting it in your mouth. It's absorbed directly into the bloodstream. Antiperspirants. Did you know that aluminum is classified as a metalloestrogen? That means it mimics estrogen in the body. And where are you putting it? Look at all those lymph nodes. We're designed to sweat. It's okay to sweat. But when you keep putting aluminum there day after day, year after year, what effect is that having on your health? The average person is putting a lot of chemicals on their body. So again, start dialing back, start looking at what you're putting in your body and on your body. Everyone who has cancer also has many different pathogenic things, lots of underlying systemic infections that they're not even aware of. And oftentimes I ask them, go to your doctor and have these blood tests done so we could see how your immune system is, and if you have Epstein-Barr or cytomegalovirus or lots of fungus and yeast and bacteria that are suppressing your immune system. So that's definitely adding to the toxic load. But one toxin that I'm very passionate about educating people on is electropollution. We don't see it, we don't taste it, we don't feel it, but it's affecting us 24/7. If you're holding your cell phone and you're texting or talking to somebody in a building like this, if that radiation can go through these walls, these cement walls, what do you think it's doing to your body? It's a serious, serious problem, and it's getting worse. Just go back 150 years. That hardly existed on the planet. And if you don't believe me, go to this website, bioinitiativereport.org. 29 independent scientists over 10 years looked at the data, and there is no doubt that electropollution causes DNA damage, disrupts your immune system, causes cancer, brain tumors, leukemia in kids, sleep problems, fertility, and reproductive disorders. That's a proven fact. In fact, the World Health Organization has classified this as a class 2 carcinogen, which is the same category as DDT and lead. Now, you don't hear that on the 6 o'clock news, but it's happening. 9th graders in Sweden were curious about the effects of Wi-Fi. So they took some seeds, soaked them, put one in a room with Wi-Fi, put another group in a room away from any possible Wi-Fi. Look at the difference. Now tell me that electropollution doesn't affect us when you're sitting in a room with Wi-Fi all day long. When you hold a cell phone to your head, it disrupts what we call the blood-brain barrier. This is a filter over your brain that prevents viruses, bacteria, and chemicals from penetrating to the brain. But guess what? When you hold that cell phone, it starts putting little holes in that, so those things can get into the brain, and what do we end up? Do you think we're getting an increase in brain cancers? Know somebody who's had them? Absolutely. Don't use your body or your pockets or your bra as a cell phone carrier. They're selling bras now with cell phone carriers in them. It's crazy. This woman did that, and look what happened. She had tumors in the shape of her cell phone develop because of the non-ionizing radiation. So how do you protect yourself? Well, use your electronics carefully. Don't carry it on your body. use speakerphone. There is technology that was seen on The Truth About Cancer, and I've used this technology and tested thousands of people for over 10 years, that you can apply to your phone, that you can wear on your body, that you can put on your electronics, that help minimize the effect and neutralize that effect. So if you have any questions about that, you can come talk to me during the break. So essential number 3 is to balance your energy. You know, we're 1/billionth physical matter. The rest of us is all energy. So how do we balance that? Chiropractic care, extremely important. Did you know that people under chiropractic care have a 300% stronger immune system than those who don't? Why is that? Because your nerve system commands and controls everything in your body. You're sitting there, you're not thinking about your heart beating and your food digesting. That's being done automatically through your computer, through your nerve system. It also affects your immune system. So if you have any misalignments that's affecting the communication from the brain to your organs, well, guess what? It may be impeding your immune system. And scientists are now recognizing that if we are always in the fight or flight mode, like the foot on the accelerator, revving it up, that stimulates cancer growth versus the calmer, parasympathetic, the break mode, when you're meditating, when you're resting, reading, enjoying a book. You have to balance those two. You have to balance your sleep. How many people have sleep problems? Lots of people, and I see that all the time. If you don't sleep properly, it's affecting how your body heals, it affects your immune system, it turns off those cancer protective genes. The good news is there are things that you can do, and there are specific tests that you can take, a simple urine test that will show you how your brain hormones may be out of balance, and we can help you with that. American Cancer Society, if you simply walk 30 minutes a day, it reduces your cancer risk and helps you to recover more quickly from cancer. So be active. Balancing your hormones, very, very important. Did you know that women that are on thyroid medication are twice as likely to develop breast cancer than those who don't? There's a lot of women on thyroid medication, and they're probably just iodine deficient. So serious connection there. Birth control pills, give them out like candy to teenagers, and that should be a crime, because the World Health Organization has classified birth control pills as a carcinogen, but they're giving it to teenagers. I know women that have been on it for years, 25, 30 years. It increases your risk of breast cancer. So find safer ways, non-toxic ways to manage the birthing situation. And women, your hormones do not cause cancer. I don't care if you're PR positive, ER positive, whatever they've labeled you. If your hormones cause cancer, every 20-year-old on the planet would have cancer. Do you agree? Right? Why doesn't a 20-year-old develop cancer? Well, some are, unfortunately, but the majority, that's when your hormones are surging. So your hormones are not responsible for cancer. They don't need to be suppressed. What needs to be paid attention to are all the chemical estrogens that you may be exposed to, the herbicides, the pesticides, the things you're putting on your body. Did you know that sunscreen contains a chemical that can stimulate hormones and cause cancer in your body? But people are slathering that on. The metals in your teeth are also known as metalloestrogens. They stimulate and mimic estrogen in your body. So that's one of the problems. We have way too many chemical estrogens in the environment. And secondly, some people have a problem with metabolizing their hormones, and we see that through the DNA test. They don't break down their hormones properly, so they do have recirculating aggressive estrogens in the body, which can certainly trigger. But the key is, let's fix the problems here. Let's get to the root. Don't cover it up by trying to suppress women's hormones and affecting their brain, their bones, and their health. So that's a key pointer when it comes to breast cancer. But what's the best way to check your hormones? Simple saliva test and urine test, so we can see how out of balance you may be. When you do a blood test, it's telling you what's there at that particular second. When you do saliva testing and urine testing, it gives you a much broader 12-hour picture of where your hormones actually are. Now, essential number 4 is to heal the emotional wounds. Excuse me. It's very easy for us to get caught up in the day-to-day things. You know, let's take the pills and do the enzymes and do the enemas and the juicing and the walking and oh, I got to do this and I got to do that. But this is a huge piece of the puzzle, because I believe that 90% of the healing takes place here and here. And I can say that because of my own personal experience. I was really good at doing everything, but I had to face my demons. I had to face my past. I had to learn to nurture and love myself. I had to learn to forgive others and forgive myself. I had to discover what it was like to really be happy. I walked around most of my life with a dark cloud over my head. Oh, I look great on the inside, on the outside. Dr. V's got it all together. But on the inside, I was that wounded little child who hadn't dealt with her past and who was reacting as a wounded little child and made some really bad decisions in my life, until I recognized that it was so important to heal that part of my life and not have that conflict going on inside my brain. And I love this quote by Dr. Candace Pert. Mind does not dominate body, it becomes body. And without getting into all the chemistry behind that, but your brain secretes thousands of neurochemicals that talks to your immune system and talks to your organs and tells it to either be healthy or continue to stay sick. It's that powerful. Emotions are cellular signals. They've discovered that because of this science that they're studying more and more, psychoneuroimmunology, which is a big word that means your brain, your nerves, and your immune system all work together. And how your immune system responds to your thoughts and your feelings, even your DNA. I mean, you look at those two pictures, how does that make you feel? You just look at the guy here and he's saying, boy, he's having a bad day. Compared to, you know, happy and smiling, you just feel it energetically. In fact, they did an experiment where they took vials of DNA and they trained scientists to, you know, sit or stand in front of this vial, and they projected, first they projected very negative thoughts, anger and frustration and guilt and fear and, you know, all the negative things you can think about. And guess what happened to that DNA? The little caps fell off, the telomeres shortened, it contracted, didn't work very well. But then they took that same DNA and they felt love and peace and forgiveness and joy and abundance, prosperity, sunshine, God, you know, all these wonderful, you know, feelings of joy. And guess what happened to the DNA? Lengthened and became very healthy again. That's how powerful your thoughts are. So if you think that you're thinking things and nobody else knows, people sense it, people feel it, and your body is listening to what you're thinking. So learn to make happy your new normal. Discover your greater purpose. Develop that spiritual connection, because you cannot fully live your life if you're missing any of these pieces. And remember that cancer is a message of love, and that's a hard one sometimes to hear, especially when you're in the midst of it. And it's like, how can this be a message of love? But know that your body has been whispering to you for many, many years, and you just haven't paid attention. Now it's trying to teach you. And when we have our retreats and when we do our coaching online, we always ask, what is the gift here? What is the blessing that this message has brought you? And you have to kind of do some soul searching about that sometimes. But there's always a gift if you want there to be. Cancer is a life changer, right? It totally changes your life in a very positive way if you let it. Many, many tools that you have at your disposal in order to heal the emotional wounds. There's EFT, there's psychology, there's your spiritual counselors. There's many, many things that are available to you. Essential number 5 is to embrace biological dentistry. And that means look at what's in your mouth, because what's in your mouth is affecting your health. Those silver fillings are 50% mercury, and mercury is the most toxic element on the planet. Make a note of this YouTube called Smoking Teeth. A dentist took a tooth that had an amalgam in it, uses a toothbrush, and you can see the mercury vapors escaping that tooth. So from a chemical point of view, you have to be very careful because, as I mentioned, mercury can stimulate breast cancer cells, and they have found in breast tumors a high accumulation of heavy metals like aluminum and mercury and lead. Root canals. Dentist tells you, well, we can't save the tooth, but if you get a root canal, you can leave it there. But what is a root canal? It's a dead organ in your body. No different than a dead gallbladder or a dead appendix. No matter how aseptic or clean they try to make it, there is always, always, always a pocket of anaerobic, very toxic bacteria that are weakening your immune system and dripping those toxins into your system. So from a chemical point of view, you have to look at what's in your mouth. But from an energetic point of view, did you know that your teeth were connected to all of your organs? Just like reflexology, the bottom of your feet, you have a place for liver, spleen, stomach. Your teeth are all connected. So if you have a root canal or an amalgam filling sitting on one of those meridians that's affecting any one of your organs, and with the women I work with, especially the breast tissue, guess what? It's affecting and weakening that organ. So make sure you work with a biological dentist. And when we do thermographies, we see the inflammation around the mouth, meaning there's some toxicities there that need to be dealt with. Essential number 6 is to repair your body with therapeutic plants and herbs. Take responsibility for your health and start looking. PubMed.org. Go to the website, paid for by your tax dollars. Thousands and thousands of research papers posted there to show people how powerful natural medicines are. Bloodroot, proteolytic enzymes, broccoli sprouts, curcumin, over 200 studies specifically on breast cancer alone. Don't take my word for it. Go to the website and plug in curcumin and breast cancer. Plug in apricot seeds, fermented soy, CBD and THC, spirulina. 5 teaspoons of spirulina per day has a therapeutic effect on killing cancer. As simple as that. Vitamin C infusions, medicinal mushrooms, all kinds of medicinal mushrooms. Things as simple as trace minerals like selenium and zinc, iodine, vitamin D. Always, always, always test, don't guess when it comes to your health. Make sure you know what your vitamin D levels are. From a therapeutic range, they should be between 80 and 100 if you're on a healing journey. It's amazing to me, women come in with vitamin D as 20, as low as 20, 17, and their oncologists never mention vitamin D. If you took vitamin D, it decreases your cancer risk by 83%. 83%. Lastly, we'll talk about essential number 7, thermography and very sensitive blood tests. Mammograms have not decreased breast cancer mortality rate, not by 1%. Not by 1%. 25-year study, 50,000 women, not 1%. Mammograms are just as effective as a self-breast exam. But what happens when you get a mammogram? Compression and radiation. And tell me that's good for the body. But then I hear, well, I had a thermogram and they didn't find it, and I had a mammogram and they found it. I get it. Nothing is 100% accurate. I've had plenty of women say they had mammograms, nothing was found, had a thermogram, and it showed up. A thermogram cannot diagnose cancer, but it can detect physiological changes going on in the breast tissue. It can detect when there's just a few hundred cells that have gone rogue compared to a mammogram, which is 5 to 8 years later. It takes that many years for them to see a tumor in your breast versus a thermogram. So here's an example. You see all that red and inflammation. Inflammatory breast cancer, not diagnosed by mammograms, seen by thermography. And there's also blood tests. You know, don't just rely on one thing, but get your blood checked. And this is not what you're going to hear in traditional medicine, but there are tests that can determine if you have cancer when it's just a few million cells, just the pinhead, the dot of a pinhead, before it's the size of a golf ball, before they can see it. So all kinds of different tests that you can do. And this is something I must stress because I see this so often. Well, the doctor told me I'm cancer-free, everything's clear on my scan, nothing shows up in my traditional blood work, so I'm cancer-free. You're not, until you measure your circulating tumor cells, because when they cut out the tumor and they've done everything they're going to do, you still have circulating tumor cells in your body that need to be addressed. And the baby cancer cells, the stem cells, that need to be addressed. And there are tests, and if you come to our table, if you have questions, we can tell you about that. There are tests that show you if you still have circulating tumor cells and if you have baby cancer cells that are still in your body. Because if you do and you don't address them, you're going to be another statistic where in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, you wake up and it's spread all over the body. Well, they told me 5 years ago I was clear, because they don't have a way to measure that. They're not using that technology. You can, on a PET scan, they will not detect anything below 4 millimeters. So you must make sure that you are truly cancer-free. So after all is said and done, does all this work? Let's look at a few success stories. Well, here's mine. And now, 10 years later, very cool, healthy breasts. Woohoo! No inflammation. And we have several other pictures, and they're gonging me. I'm just about finished, 2 more minutes. You see the difference there in the breast before and after. And we have several testimonials about doctors who said they've seen the tumor shrunk. This was somebody that I worked with in Slovakia. So I don't have a physical office. Everything we do is virtual. I have coaches that work with me. We've coached women in 21 countries. Lots of testimonials. You can go to the website and get more testimonials. This is, I'm not against men. I have worked with prostate cancer. This is actually one of the first prostate cancer testimonials I had all the way back in 1994. He was told he was going to be dead in 4 months, and he's alive and well today. Somebody from Australia. If you're interested in learning more and diving a little bit deeper into the 7 Essentials, I have a #1 best-selling book. We have them here for you. We also host retreats once a year, hopefully twice a year going forward. And we'd love to have you sign up for our newsletter. So if you'd like to get more information and learn more about the 7 Essentials, we offer a free mini e-course when you enroll. Write this number down. Actually, you can take your cell phone out and just text 888-997-4149. You can just text that on your phone and just put Dr. V and then you'll get a text back and just ask you your name, your email, and you'll automatically be subscribed. So that's just an easy way of doing it. So 888-997-4149. And if you'd like to learn more information, we also have Facebook groups, Breast Cancer Conqueror Facebook. And I just want to end with this passing thought here. One of my favorite proverbs, just when the caterpillar thought the world was over, it became a butterfly. And that's so true for many of us that have been through that healing journey or just starting. We're like that little cocoon where it's dark and it's scary and you're cramped and you're alone and you don't know what the future holds. But what does that little cocoon do? It trusts the laws of nature and it trusts the universe and know that there is a process, and that's part of the healing journey. If you allow this healing journey to transform you, it's not just getting rid of the lump or the bump, but it's about a whole transformation of your mind, your heart, your soul, your life, everything. And if you allow that transformation to happen, you will end up on the other side a happier and healthier you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.